Mayor. Thank you. Well, as Mr. Castaneda indicated, I did circulate, and we all have copies of my own recommendation, and on my recommendation, I've of course taken the 10% cut in my own budget, my own office budget. And and I've done that because I realize we're in a difficult situation. We just went through the presentation that shows that, and so this recommendation, the one that I'm proposing, cuts to the bone. I mean, it's absolutely cuts to the bone in our department. I think what Mr. Castaneda said is correct. I mean, there's like nothing left there, and we are already short, in my opinion. And so I'm willing to cut to the bone. I'm just hoping that we can all cut to the bone. And it's really the thing that Mayor, you and I have been talking about since day one, which is this idea of proportionality. We really have no proportionality. I mean, we each, according to our charter, have the same legislative responsibilities. There is no one more than the other on this body, yet the resources that are allocated to those responsibilities are very they're just not in proportion, and so I'm looking for some proportionality, and that's what I attempted to do. And so it occurred to me that one of the things that we could do was look at our budget. I mean, we as individual council members are part-time employees, part-time council members. I understand the mayor's office is full-time, and so why not? Take that number, double it, make that the total budget for the mayor's portion of the overall department budget. It would bring us to a savings of almost 29% in this budget. And if we can, as individual council members, do it, I'm sure that the mayor's office could do it also. And that I think would demonstrate to not just the organization but the public that we're serious about cutting. Otherwise, I think it's just not proportional. And so, I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm looking to cut to the bone. I think we all need to do that. And so I would like to amend the motion to ask that we instead consider taking the recommendation, the proposal that I've placed on the table for consideration of a 29% reduction in the overall budget, a savings of let me see, $426,000. What could we do with $426,000? I think we could do a lot, and so I'm interested in amending this motion to include this new budget reduction proposal. And I don't know if I could get a second on that. But
I'll second.
I'm going to go back to parliamentary procedure now. We have a motion that I moved, that Mr. Rendon seconded, that the department divisions be individually be reduced by at least 10%, and now a request for an amendment. I'm going to speak against the amendment, and although people might believe it's for entirely personal reasons, we've been through this before. Mr. Ramirez, you and I have had this discussion. The constituent services manager works on behalf of the entire department, is answerable to me. The coastal advisor has been responsible in bringing what promises to be almost $5 million in grant funds to us with a successful Otay Valley Regional Park opportunity. So the proposal that you have before us now, in essence, cuts the mayor's office practically in half. And I guess what I'd like to see is your office's 10% cuts, and to stay with the motion as written, and then to allow Mr. Castaneda to restate his motion, which will redirect the budget subcommittee to come back to see if there are further cuts. But with that, Madam Attorney, I need some advice on how to proceed.
There's a motion on the floor to amend, and that has to be voted on first. And then after that, you can entertain, if if you want, if there's another amendment to the motion or the motion that's, the original motion.
In your motion, Mr. Ramirez, did you have a percentage? I've forgotten it by now, 29%?
Yeah, it's about 29%, give or take, you know, I mean, the numbers are roughly, I mean, you know, Mayor, I'm willing, I mean, I understand all of that. I understand what you're talking about, but I mean, even if we took the individual council members' budget and tripled that, it would still be a savings of about 20%. If we triple that amount and use that as the mayor's office budget, it would still be a savings of about 20%. From what I, you know, I don't have my calculator here, but you know, a savings of over $300,000 that we could take from this department. And I mean, I think that's the serious and responsible thing to do. And then as we go forward in the years to come, as we see that we may need, you know, as times improve, then I think that we relook at this and see how we can restore some of this funding so that we all can, you know, together meet the obligations of our, you know, our legislative responsibilities.
Well, I'd just like to point out that, again, in comparing the year previous, ending in '06 and the year ending in '07, my office spent $2,600 versus $14,000. So I think you have a fiscal conservative as your mayor, but I'm now probably more confused by the amendment to the budget, so I want to make sure we get that clear.
You know, Mayor, may I just say something about that? You know, I absolutely recognize that in the way that you've managed the budget in your office. I know that you're constantly out there looking in the community to have, you know, underwrite some of those operations, and so those dollars are there in that office, and I think that you know, that spreading the burden here, I think, is not unreasonable for the group, because I mean, as Mr. Castaneda said, these budget reductions, this 10%, and the individual council members' budgets would gut them really, for all intents and purposes.
Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was only handed this about 10 minutes ago. And I think ultimately the 10% is going to be a start. And I do appreciate your comments. I actually appreciate Steve's comments as well. Normally, when we get something like this, we have 72 hours to be able to look at it, to be able to analyze it. Again, I think that 10% is a start. I think we should continue to look for opportunities. But I don't think that I've had this information and had the ability to analyze it and the ability to go to what Mr. Castaneda did and look at the line items, and I'd like the opportunity to do that. The way this budget workshop was set up was ultimately to be able to sort of get the information tonight and then look at things, the workshop on April 3rd. And I would like to be able to do that, and I'd be willing to go through and look at your proposal and give it the proper review that I think it deserves.
Well, but just to be clear, though, that what we're talking about now, though, is we're talking about the budget for 08-09. So we're looking forward a year now, a year and a half. And, right, I mean, the remainder of this year and the next fiscal
The
year.
remainder of this year, we already voted on. This is the start of next year.
So this would be for next year's budget,
Right,
which
that's right.
wouldn't be implemented till basically July. So, again, what I'm just basically asking is the opportunity, again, since this is, you know, the seat of the pants last minute type of thing given to me, to be able to come back in April, which is still plenty of time prior to the end of the fiscal year for this year, and to be able to implement different cuts or additional cuts by July.
Mr. Rindon.
Thank you very much. I too join my colleague in indicating that we probably need to look at additional cuts, and interesting enough, that's why I sought the clarity of the motion that was originally proposed, because I looked at it as 10 and 10.